Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar titled Sleep for Health, both your physical health and your mental health. Many of us know the benefits of sleep for health, but why do so many of us consciously or unconsciously, if you will, skimp ourselves on this? It's part of our lifestyles today for whatever reason. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sue Lunt, and it's a pleasure to be here with you on behalf of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Through this webinar, I hope to talk to you about the benefits of both good sleep and leave you with how to improve your own sleep habits. Hope that sounds like a plan. So how do I happen to be talking to you about it today? You can see that I'm a nurse, although I've not worked in traditional care in decades. I've been in the wellness industry for the last 15 years. And in the wellness industry is really where I discovered both the research and started to focus more on the benefits of getting good sleep. I have to tell you, back in my nursing days, it was almost a badge of honor not to be able to function on just a little bit of sleep. And I know that's the same in many industries today. So how did we get there? We'll talk a little bit about that. I also want to share with you that I spend my time now for the last 15 years in the wellness industry as a health coach and also doing webinar work. And when you see the LMC after my name, I bring it up because much of the content from this webinar came from a course I took that gave me my certification as a lifestyle medicine coach. I should say, sorry. This course was co-written by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and Well Coaches. And the course looked at the evidence behind what helps us maintain our health over time. And no surprise, a big part of it is our sleep. So let's get going. So we know that sleep is restorative. It's restorative for both our mind and our body. And that is why, at a very cellular level, we are repaired while we sleep. So how come we skimp on it? When did being overscheduled and getting by on a little sleep become a badge of honor? Not sure, but I'm going to leave you with some reasons to pay more attention to sleep. Here's my agenda. Let's talk about the impact on our bodies, on our minds. And I'm going to talk about stages of sleep, not so much for you to memorize this, but I hope to give you an appreciation why both the length of time you sleep, as well as the quality of your sleep, matter and impact your day-to-day life. We'll talk about sleep problems, particularly insomnia. And I'm going to leave you with the lifestyle habits that are known to improve both the quality and the length of sleep. And once again, I'll be drawing from this coursework, but with this, I want to give credit to Dr. Didia. He gave the sleep portion of this presentation. And you spell his first name is Param, Parum. His last name is Dedia, Dedhia. He's a functional medical doctor and the sleep director out at the Canyon Ranch out in Arizona. So much of the lifestyle habits that make a difference are taken from this course. Let's get going. Let's talk about the impact on our bodies. I'm sorry, one more thing. I want to remind you that if you have a question as I go along, feel free to enter it into the chat room. And I'll be happy to try to weave in my response as we go along. So during sleep, our bodies are repaired. They're repaired at a cellular level. It's when our limbic system is refreshed and our memory is enhanced. So deep sleep not only enhances our memory, but improves our problem-solving ability. It really does make a day-to-day difference in how we function. So where do we start? Start with how much do you need? I'm giving you the whole chart that came from Dr. Dadia's work and also the National Sleep Foundation, but I'm going to focus this webinar on adults. In general, adults need 7 to 9 hours of good sleep. Yet we know that on any given day, at least we know that many of us do not get enough sleep. How do you know for sure? Let's assess your energy level. In the morning, what is your energy level? On a scale of 1 to 10, write it down. 1 being low, 10 being high. Next, I want you to consider your energy level at lunchtime. Again, on that scale of 1 to 10. Now, dinner time. So we know in general, most adults need 7 hours of sleep or more. However, there's a small percentage of people that can get by with just a little. So in what brought you to this webinar, consider your energy level and also consider the answers to the following questions. Do you fall asleep while you're reading in the afternoon? Do you fall asleep if you're a passenger in a car for an hour or more? Do you fall asleep watching TV in the early evening? Believe it or not, if you answered yes to any of these questions, it should be a hint to you that you actually need either more length of sleep or more quality of sleep. Okay. Next, we're going to go turn to the stages of sleep. And I'm hoping through here I'll be able to share with you why good sleep is just worth our time. I want you to think about, as I go through this slide, a 7-hour period of time. And let's walk you through a typical sleep cycle. So what happens when we first go upstairs to lay down and go to bed? Eyes are resting, closed. We're very easily awoken at this point in time. This is called stage 1. Generally, we spend only about 5% of our night in getting to sleep. Takes most people simply 15 to 20 minutes. So we move, this is non-REM sleep. We're very easily aroused. We move from there into stage 2, where we typically spend 50 to 55% of our time. This is non-REM sleep. However, it's still important. It is where beginning repair is done. So we can be aroused easily. If someone walked into the room, it might wake us up, but we're not as easily woken as we were in stage 1. We move from here into stage 3. This is called deep sleep. Now we spend 15 to 25% of our time in what's called deep sleep. What happens during deep sleep? This is where the muscle repair is done. So if you've had a really good workout and you want to make sure you're getting into this deep sleep, because this is where growth hormone is released and we start the repair work. We move from here into what's called REM sleep. This is also very deep sleep, this is a rapid eye movement sleep. We spend 15 to 25% of our night in REM sleep. And the REM sleep is where we get the emotional clearing happening. Now, what I want you to take away is that on average, you have 3 to 5 REM cycles throughout the night. So we're just closing on. When we get into stage 2, we're maybe within the first hour of sleep. The first half of the night is when you spend the most time in that deep sleep, where the muscle repair. So those of you who work out heavily, this is really important. However, what also happens is as the night goes on, we spend more time in that dream sleep. And in that dream sleep is when the emotional clearing goes on and where problem solving skills are enhanced. So both parts are important. When I took the course, Dr. Dadia said that the first half of the night, first 0 to 4 hours roughly, are important for declarative memory. Think about if you have a bunch of Post-it notes that you're really trying to cement in your brain. That's happening in the first quarter of the night. along with muscle repair. The second half of the night, it's important for making the connections. He said it's like you get all those post-it notes pulled together. Problem solving happens. Creativity is enhanced. So that's why it's important to give yourself a nod to that 7 hours of sleep, or look what you could potentially be losing out on. If you have questions, don't hesitate to enter them. Okay, so we know that the sleep is important. And most of us go to bed with the intent of staying asleep. But what happens? What does change over time is our ability to drift back to sleep. Do you ever watch a young child sleep? It's on your couch, or even if you're looking at them in their bed, you might see them in rapid eye movement sleep. And they might even wake up and look at you, but they don't really focus on you. They don't wake up. They'll turn over and go right back to sleep. Their bodies inherently tell them, it's important to get this sleep. But as we get older, what keeps us from drifting back to sleep? When we're more easily aroused, number one, but number two, it's those to-do lists. We start thinking and we're wide awake. So if we can give a nod to ourselves that it's not abnormal to wake up during the night, that doesn't mean we have to bring ourselves fully awake, but knowing we go in and out of cycles. Also worth noting, just for what other age group do you think through life are the very best sleepers? You won't want to chat. It's teenagers. Ever try to wake up a teenager? They don't like it. Their bodies know they need more sleep. But somehow, as we get older, we forget this. Worth remembering. All right. What else can get in the way of good sleep? These are not a complete list, but a good place to start in thinking about it, because both physical and environmental things can affect our sleep. Most of you are probably familiar with sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is a real concern. It deserves medical attention. It's when people are gasping for breath. We know now from science that people who have true sleep apnea are also at much higher risk for developing other conditions. Now, what about regular snoring? About 65% of people who snore, it's regular. It's not an issue. So that's kind of important to know. Unfortunately, as anyone who sleeps with someone who's a real snorer knows, it can be really disruptive to the mate. So that's when you put in what lifestyle changes you can, elevating the bed, really consider the sleep environment, because it's important for both people to get good sleep. So sleep apnea is what we want to identify. Snoring, 65% people snore without issues for themselves. It's the partner that may be disrupted. The other thing that can disrupt our sleep is periodic limb movements, sometimes known as restless leg. It doesn't have to be a leg, doesn't have to be an arm, but something makes you move in the middle of the night. Again, these are physical things that this one deserves to talk to your primary care physician, because there may be something that you can do. There often is treatments, and you can minimize this and get back to that good sleep. What else can get in the way? Teeth grinding. The dentist is often the first one to see that. So if someone suggested to you that you get a device, consider it, because it might make a big difference in you getting that quality sleep, getting into deep sleep, all those benefits. Pain and discomfort can wake us up. Again, not normal to be in pain. It's not something just because you get older, you don't have to live with pain for the most part. Really talk to your healthcare providers in this regard. And then medications, we all know medications can impact it. So talk to your healthcare provider. When your sleep is disrupted, consider it something to pay attention to. Now, there's certain lifestyle things that we can change. I'll be talking more about caffeine and alcohol in just a minute. I'll mention here nicotine. Again, nicotine disrupts the natural circadian rhythms they've discovered. So people who smoke tend to have a harder time getting to sleep and staying asleep. So again, truly a reason to consider stopping that habit. Next, think about room environment. if you're in a really hot room, it's much harder to get into that deep sleep. So turn the thermostat down so it's cool, not uncomfortable. The other piece about room environment is blackout shades can be a game changer for some of us. So consider, is your room really dark at night? Blue light disrupts the natural melatonin flow. So we want to be in a really dark room, in some people, I should say. What else? Trips to the bathroom. What's normal? What's abnormal? Not abnormal to go to the bathroom once, maybe even twice at night. But it is abnormal to be getting up 3 to 4 times. So talk to your doctor. It's really important to get into that deep sleep. So consider these things. This isn't an all-inclusive list. It gives you a good place to start. Let's talk a little bit more about caffeine. Caffeine, really, different people are affected differently by caffeine. And so that's what you want to take away first. No problem in having a cup of coffee or two, as long as it agrees with you. But if sleep is an issue, it may be something you can affect. Why and how? Caffeine, we know, blocks deep sleep by its effect on a chemical called adenosine that is naturally released in our body. Because of its effect on that, it may be harder to get to sleep. We know that it takes 7 hours to metabolize caffeine by 50%. So let's think about that. Not uncommon for people to have caffeine in the morning, say between 7 and 9 o'clock. What if you have 1 to 2 cups of coffee? Then at 3 o'clock, you still have a cup of coffee in you. But what happens if at that time in the day you decide to give yourself another cup of coffee? Then you're trying to get sleepy in the evening. You may still have a cup of coffee in you. So ask yourself, how much caffeine are you asking your body to break down? And consider, when was the last cup of caffeine you had most days? Again, if sleep's an issue. Hope that helps. Okay, alcohol. Let's talk about alcohol. We all know that alcohol helps people fall asleep more quickly. Well, let's talk about what happens once you fall asleep. The first hour, much more sedated. Early sleep enhanced by alcohol, you often get the effects of a relaxed tongue and tonsils. What's that mean? Remember the days when we were flying more regularly? Did you ever be next to someone who fell asleep? Or even if that's your spouse or your partner, when they fall asleep at night, if they've had a couple drinks, can be very noisy. The other thing is the second hour, you're more fidgety. So really the timing of a drink, particularly if it affects you, should be considered. If you cannot have a drink before 2 hours before going to bed, ideal. But again, I'm not suggesting that you can't have a drink in the evening. Different people are affected differently. But know that for each regular glass of wine or beer or alcohol, sleep is disrupted for about 2 hours potentially. So if you're having regularly like a half a bottle of wine in the evening, sleep can be disrupted for up to 5 hours. So something to consider, again, if you realize you really would benefit from more sleep. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. Next thing I want you to talk about is what we call common sleep disorders. The most common sleep disorder is that most of us don't give ourselves enough time to get to sleep. The next issue is nocturnal movement. Affects about 5 to 10% that I was talking, the restless leg. And sleep apnea, 5 to 10%. You want to talk to a sleep specialist or your primary care physician regarding sleep apnea. Next, let's look at narcolepsy. Can't do a sleep presentation without at least mentioning. Luckily, it's very rare, only about 1 in 2,000 people. What is it characterized by? Excessive daytime drowsiness. and sudden attacks of sleep. I don't know if you've ever had the occasion to run into someone with this disorder, but they can literally fall asleep anytime, anywhere. And there's treatments, but no real cure. So it's an unfortunate issue for some people, but luckily rare. Okay, for many people, what comes to sleep disorder clinics is something called insomnia. What do we mean by insomnia? Either trouble getting to sleep or staying asleep. So when it happens acutely, most of us have experienced it sometime in our life, either something really great happening or something that's really bothering us, and we're having trouble get to sleep. Again, not unusual. How do you know if it's an issue? One, most of us know when it's an issue, but for definition, let's consider what it means to have chronic insomnia. That's what you want to avoid. Chronic occurs if it happens 3 nights a week for 3 consecutive weeks. And in that case, then I'm going to talk a little bit some of the things that lifestyle changes you can look at, but you may want to get help with that from a sleep specialist. Comorbid conditions, those are things that sometimes some of us unfortunately do have to deal with. Talk to your healthcare provider. What's very common is just having trouble getting to sleep with that busy brain, or if something wakes us up, we don't turn over like a child is and just go back. So this is where different lifestyle measures can help. Let's talk about some of them. Many of you may have heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, so-called CBT. These have really emerged as sleep has become an issue for many adults today. What's the first thing we look at? We look at stimulus control. What do I mean by that? Is the room comfortable for you? On the cool side. Is it dark? Some people are really bothered by the blue light. So recommendations to get the blue light out of the bedroom come from this. Know yourself. The other thing that we talk about with CBT is sleep restriction. What do I mean by that? You want to give yourself 7 hours to get to sleep. So sometimes even if you're giving yourself much longer, but you're not waking up those early questions I asked with enough energy, or finding yourself sleepy throughout the day, then it's time to consider restricting your time to actually go to sleep. You don't want to be falling asleep right before bedtime. So people, in that case, you need to create a distraction for yourself. Maybe you create a new activity you do right after dinner, but you keep yourself from falling asleep just before your bedtime, because you know that's going to interfere. So restricting the time in bed works for some. The other thing is, I'll talk about naps in just a minute. Insomnia, CBT therapy targets thoughts and beliefs. What is keeping us awake? People journal, people do different relaxation therapies. I don't have time in 30 minutes, but there's apps out there. But look to your sleep specialist, someone like Dr. Dadia, who gave this talk, or the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They have been collecting this data for a long time. Sleep hygiene, I'm going to get into in just a minute, how to set up a good sleep hygiene activities for yourself, and consider relaxation therapies. Want to mention what happens when we don't interfere with disrupted sleep. We now know that there are many more traffic accidents caused in this country by people who are sleepy, especially if you've gotten under 7 hours of sleep. It's known that you're more likely to be in a traffic accident, and unfortunately, more likely that you may have been the cause of the accident. So real consequences to this. In addition to that, the occupational errors have been shown to go up. As in many things, they test medical students, sleep deprived them, and looked at their memory, and they could not remember after their sleep had been delayed consistently for under 7 hours. You also want to look at your energy level. If your energy is low, Consider making sleep a priority. And what about sleep's effect on our appetite? Good grief. Unfortunately, again, what I learned from this course is that the sleepy brain is the craving brain. And unfortunately, it doesn't crave the kinds of things we want it to. Any of you found yourself at the snack cabinet after having a sleepless night? We are naturally drawn to sugar, to fat, and we're drawn impulsively to it when we don't get a good night's sleep. It's just the way the brain works. So by paying attention to it, we will allow our hormones to be affected in a positive way. And our hormones play a big role in getting to sleep and staying asleep. Also know that the timing of the evening meal can affect it. Again, if you're asking your body to break down sugar just before you're going to sleep, it's you're making it work doubly hard. So the quality of sleep makes it easier to help you maintain weight because your hormones will work for you. So what do we mean by that? What is healthy eating? Basically, it's that whole foods eating pattern. This list of foods gives a nod for foods that are known to encourage sleep, but it's not all inclusive. Simply eating a whole foods diet gives a nod to better sleep. We know that vegetables are more easily metabolized. So that's why if you know you can't eat to just before bed, think about something like a lentil soup, something that's easier for your body to break down. Let's go from that to what else can we do to really help ourselves get to sleep. The impact of exercise is huge. When you hear about regular exercise, it does all the right things. First, most of us know it boosts our feel-good hormones. On top of that, it helps with the breakdown of ATP. What's that mean? That means it leads to an increase in adenosine. Adenosine is a chemical that throughout the day accumulates, getting us ready to drift off to sleep at night. Remember how caffeine interfered with it? Exercise does the opposite. So exercise decreases the time to get to sleep. It's also been shown to increase time in REM sleep, and it decreases nighttime waking. So definitely worth a nod. If you know you do everything else okay, and for whatever reason you're still not sleeping, the habit of exercise could be on your to-do list. The other thing that came out of looking at and what cognitive behavioral therapy enhances to do the same thing day and night. So this is a list of helpful behaviors. Ramp down, get the room dark. Some people benefit from aromatherapy or a warm shower. You want to establish a very consistent wake-up time as well. And go to bed when you're tired. Don't fall asleep in front of the TV, then wake up and stay longer. Hard to do, but important. And you want to time your caffeine and your alcohol. So in terms of tips to improve sleep, number one, make time for it. I don't have time in just a half hour to get into circadian rhythms, but they're enhanced by exposing yourself to light first thing in the morning. So get up and greet the sunshine whenever possible. And remember to darken your room at night. And for those of you who have a job that doesn't allow you to get these 7 hours of sleep, maybe you're a shift worker, then consider a nap. This is where naps play. It is appropriate to take a 20 to 30-minute nap if you're not able to give your body 7 hours of sleep. But it should be regular. So again, regular behavior, regular habits improve sleep. I talked about the impact of alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. Definitely consider exercise and nutrition, because the function and promise of good sleep are the following 10 items. Better energy, more joy by letting the limbic system relax during that REM sleep, better memory, affecting brain health and heart health. We know it improves our mood. When you wake up after a good night's sleep, is there anything that makes you feel better? Studies have shown again that it is benefits inflammation. So if you're trying to heal, didn't our great grandparents always say that to us? Get your sleep. The power of sleep to both repair, reset, and restore is huge. So I hope this was helpful, and have a good night's sleep. Great, thank you. I can see the comments. Which charts? I don't know, Andrea. Do we have time to go back and pull up one of the charts? You let me know.